Hello, whisperers. Welcome to the channel. If you enjoy tonight's tale, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. It helps more than you know. Now, dim the lights, and let's begin tonight's story. Halloween's the only night of the year I lock my doors before sunset. Not because I'm scared of kids in masks or the idiots who get drunk and think they're immortal. I lock up because the real monsters like to blend in on this night, and people are too damn busy trying to scare each other to notice when something in the crowd is doing it for real. The agency calls it a phenomenon. I call it a feeding frenzy. Every year, somewhere in the country, a city turns into a slaughterhouse. It happens at the same hour, same night, 11:11 p.m., October 31st. I've seen the footage, parades tearing apart in seconds, things crawling out of bonfires, people screaming until their voices give out. The last 3 years, it's moved in a pattern. This year, they say it's our turn. They flew me into the city yesterday. Nondescript Midwestern place, cold wind, streets already cluttered with fake cobwebs and beer cans. The local handler, a young guy in a wrinkled suit with a trembling smile, met me outside my motel. I could smell the fear on him before he even spoke. We've had sightings, more odd shapes near storm drains, missing pets, a few dismemberments, but no one's connecting it. Everyone thinks it's just Halloween pranks gone wrong. Yeah, I told him, checking the chamber of my rifle, until it isn't. He didn't stick around long after that. They never do. The motel was a dive on the edge of downtown, the kind of place where the wallpaper curls like it's trying to escape. I laid my gear out on the bed, silver tracers, UV mags, salt grenades, one blessed blade courtesy of a priest who owed me a favor. The air reeked of bleach and mildew, and the TV in the next room was playing Halloween on loop. I spent most of the evening cleaning my gun and watching the street through the blinds. Kids ran by in cheap plastic masks, their parents trailing behind with mugs of something warm. The sound of laughter kept mixing with sirens somewhere far off. You could feel it building. The hum under your skin that said the world was about to tilt. At 11:10, I got my first sign. A group of teens in vampire costumes came stumbling out of the bar across the street. One of them stopped under the flickering streetlight, doubled over like he was about to puke. The others laughed. Then he straightened up and bit the girl beside him. Not fake, not drunk, bit clean through her neck. By the time I crossed the street, the rest of them were screaming, backing away, phones out, recording. The kid's eyes were blood red, but not human red, more like embers. He tore into her again before I put 2 rounds in his skull. The body hit the pavement. No one clapped. No one screamed. Just dead air and the sound of blood running into the gutter. I checked my watch. 11:11. Then someone laughed. It came from further down the street. Not a person, not really. Something tall, wearing what looked like a scarecrow mask, leaning against a lamppost. I could hear it breathing through the burlap, wet, slow, too steady to be human. The laughter started again, this time closer. I backed up toward the motel. Behind me, the neon sign buzzed like it was about to short out. I kept my weapon trained on the thing in the street, but when the light flickered, it was gone. And then the screams started. One at first, then 10, then too many to count. They came from every direction, down the block, across the square, behind closed doors. I caught flashes between the costumes, something crawling across the pavement, something dragging itself out of a manhole, something that wasn't wearing a mask at all. I remember thinking, here we go again. The first explosion went off somewhere near the parade route. The orange glow lit the sky like sunrise. I grabbed my rifle, slung my bag, and stepped into the street. Halloween had just begun. I'd seen cities fall before. Small towns eaten alive by things that shouldn't exist. But this was different. This was a celebration turned slaughter. The screams didn't stop. They multiplied. They wove through the streets like sirens, bouncing between concrete and glass until it sounded like the whole city was dying in harmony. I moved down Main, rifle up, boots crunching over broken glass and candy. The air already stank of blood and burning plastic. Costumes hung from lampposts, where people had been torn apart and left dangling. Everywhere I looked, something was wrong. A man in a clown suit lay twitching in the middle of the road, his painted grin still perfect as his jaw hung by a strip of skin. A woman dressed as a nurse was crawling toward me, dragging half her body like dead weight. Her legs were gone, just ribbons of meat trailing behind. I put her down quick, didn't have the luxury of mercy speeches. Gunfire echoed somewhere ahead, followed by a scream that went wet halfway through. I turned the corner into a nightmare. The parade had collapsed into chaos, floats burning, fake fog mixing with real smoke, the air glowing red and orange like the gates of hell had opened right on schedule. Bodies everywhere. Some were human, some not. Vampiric things hunched over corpses, feeding like stray dogs. Ghouls with waxy skin and faces stretched too tight crawled along car hoods, sniffing at the air. A werewolf, if you could even call it that, was tearing through a police cruiser, claws screeching against steel as it dug out the officer inside. I fired 3 rounds into its back. Silver tracers lit up the night. The beast turned, snarled, blood pouring from its muzzle like black tar. It lunged. I ducked behind a barricade, rolled, and planted a UV grenade under it as it landed. The flash turned night into white daylight. The thing's skin peeled off in sheets. It collapsed, howling, until there was nothing left but smoke and bone. The crowd had become a battlefield. People still ran past, some laughing, some screaming, some too stunned to know which they were supposed to do. I saw a man in a devil mask trying to rip open a storefront, but when he turned, I realized it wasn't a mask. His whole face was splitting open, horns pushing through his skin like broken glass. He screamed in triumph, not pain. I put a bullet through his skull. The sound barely registered over the chaos. A kid in a skeleton costume stumbled out of an alley, crying. I almost went to him, until he opened his mouth and a second jaw slid out. He screeched and charged. I shot him too. No one told me what these things were. No one ever does. I just clean up the mess. The streetlights were dying one by one, leaving everything washed in orange flame. I kept moving, head low, gun up, counting my ammo like a prayer. I needed high ground, somewhere defensible. That's when I saw it. Down by the riverfront, one of the big parade floats was still moving, even though the truck had crashed. Flames licked the edges, catching paper skeletons and streamers. The centerpiece was a 10-foot effigy of a horned demon, arms raised, grinning, except it wasn't paper mache anymore. It was breathing. The air around it shimmered like heat. The flames didn't burn it. They crawled over its skin like they were worshiping it. I could see the shape of its chest moving, expanding, the ribs pressing against the outer layer as it grew. Then it looked at me. I don't know how, but I felt it, like my spine had turned to ice water. It smiled wider, the jaw unhinged, splitting nearly to its chest. The sound that came out wasn't a roar. It was a laugh. People nearby started screaming again, though not for long. The thing reached down with hands the size of engines, scooped them up, and crushed them until they popped like fruit. Their blood hit the pavement in steaming waves. I opened fire. Every round found its mark, but it didn't care. It just turned, unfazed, the bullets glowing red as they melted into its skin. I switched to thermite. That got its attention. The creature howled, flames twisting up into the night sky as if the air itself were alive. The shockwave knocked me back against a bus stop. Something hit me from behind, smaller, faster. I turned just in time to see a woman in a witch costume tackle me, her face half gone, one eye glowing faint yellow. She hissed through what was left of her throat. I stabbed her under the chin and felt the blade hit brain. By the time I looked back, the demon had vanished into the smoke. Only the burning float remained, creaking as it collapsed into the river. I checked my magazine. 2 rounds left. I reloaded, slid the bolt forward, and started toward the docks. The city was gone. The streets, the people, the laughter, all of it swallowed by screams and fire. Somewhere in the distance, church bells started ringing. They weren't supposed to. And beneath the ringing, I heard something else. Whispering, thousands of voices chanting in time with the tolling bells. Whatever this was, it wasn't random. It was ritual. And it was only just getting started. The city was burning behind me. Sirens had turned into a constant howl, blending with screams until I couldn't tell which was which. The sky itself looked infected. Orange clouds swirling with ash. The moon a pale bruise behind the smoke. I'd lost comms half an hour ago. Either the network fried or the agency pulled the plug. Wouldn't surprise me. It's easier to deny something when no one's alive to report it. I headed toward the precinct. Steel doors, reinforced glass, decent field of view. Good place to make a stand. On the way, I passed what used to be a Halloween block party. Tables overturned, speakers still playing distorted pop songs, strobe lights flashing over heaps of bodies. The whole street smelled like blood and burnt sugar. Something moved in the crowd. I swung the rifle up. A shape crouched between two cars, gnawing on something soft. I got closer. It was a man, what was left of him. His face was painted like a skeleton, and he'd peeled off half the skin so it would match. He looked up, chewing, and grinned through a mouth full of pink meat. I put one through his forehead. The sound echoed off the buildings, then faded into the firecrackers and dying. The precinct loomed ahead like a dark ship run aground. I slammed on the emergency entry and slipped inside. The lights flickered. Backup power. The lobby was empty except for blood trails and two overturned desks. A pistol lay near the door, slide locked open. I barricaded the main entrance, checked corners, and headed upstairs. Third floor, communications, dead radios, burnt wires. Same whispering I'd heard before, just louder now, sliding through the vents, like wind in a graveyard. I kept moving. In the holding cells, I found survivors. 5 of them huddled in one cage, eyes wide. Civilians mostly, one cop bleeding out, clutching a shotgun like it was faith itself. They looked at me like I was salvation. I'm not. Lock the back door. Stay quiet, I said. If you see something that looks human but moves wrong, shoot it. The bleeding cop laughed once, hoarse. And if it looks right, shoot it twice. I left them there and started wiring the hallways. C4 along support beams, sodium flares at choke points, salt and magnesium across the floor. The air was getting heavy, like the whole building was exhaling heat. At 12:04, the whispering stopped. That's when I knew they'd found me. The first one came through the stairwell, a thing shaped like a woman, skin gray and slick, wearing a bride's gown soaked through. Her mouth opened from ear to ear, and she screamed without sound. I blew her down the stairs with a mine. Then came the rest. They hit the walls like a flood, clawing, snarling, bursting through plaster and glass. Bullets tore them apart, but didn't slow them down. Limbs kept crawling, heads still biting after separation. The corridors filled with smoke and the smell of cooked flesh. One of the civilians screamed. Something dragged him off into the dark. The others opened fire, panicking, hitting everything, including me. I ducked behind the desk and tossed a flare. The burst of white light seared their retinas long enough for me to finish reloading. I fought until the rifle clicked dry. Then I switched to the blade. It was chaos. Blood on tile, shell casings raining like coins. One creature grabbed me by the throat and lifted me off the ground. Its skin was smooth and cold, almost glassy. I jammed the knife through its jaw and into its skull. It fell, twitching. The last civilian went down, screaming. The cop was still breathing, barely. He looked at me, eyes wide, pupils shaking. Why's this happening? He asked. I didn't have an answer. Outside, Something massive slammed against the building. Dust fell from the ceiling. Another hit followed, harder. The windows cracked. Then the wall caved in. The horned demon from the parade stood there, framed in firelight, bigger now, almost touching the roof. Its horns scraped concrete. Its eyes burned like coals in a furnace. I triggered the detonator. The explosion tore through the hallway, ripping the roof apart and flinging me out onto the street. My ears rang. The world spun sideways. I hit pavement, rolled, and saw half the precinct collapse in a wave of flame and dust. The demon was still standing, charred but breathing. It stepped through the fire, each footfall shaking glass from the windows above. I dragged myself up, grabbed the last flare, and struck it against the asphalt. The hiss cut through the noise. The demon hesitated. Its skin began to blister, smoke curling off its shoulders. "Yeah," I muttered. "Didn't like that, did you?" I hurled the flare straight into its mouth. The light burned from the inside out. The thing shrieked, a sound like metal tearing in half. It staggered, clawed at its face, and collapsed into the street, burning from the inside like a furnace shutting down. When it finally stopped moving, I was the only thing left standing. The city around me was silent again. No sirens, no screams, just wind and fire. I started walking. Didn't know where to. Didn't matter. Behind me, the clock tower struck 1. Halloween still had hours to go. I don't remember much after the fire. Just pieces, heat, smoke, and a sky bruised black-red from the flames. I walked until my legs gave out, then kept crawling. Every street looked the same: broken glass, burned cars, and silence heavy enough to crush your chest. By the time the sun started clawing its way up, I was standing on a bridge overlooking what used to be downtown. The fires had eaten most of it. Black towers of smoke twisted into the clouds like funeral veils. The river below was red-brown and thick. No one was coming, no rescue choppers, no cleanup crews. Just the hiss of wind through cracked windows and the pop of burning asphalt. The city was gone. The agency will call it something neat and forgettable. Gas explosion, mass hysteria, electrical fire. They'll bulldoze what's left, send in teams to collect samples, and pretend the death toll's a rounding error. They'll say nothing walked out, but something always does. I kept moving through the ruins, 1 block at a time. There were bodies everywhere. Some were human, some weren't. The difference didn't seem to matter anymore. A playground sat at the edge of a park, half-melted, swings still creaking. There was a jack-o'-lantern on the slide, candles still burning inside, untouched. I don't know why, but I stared at it for a long time. That's when I heard the laughter. Not close, distant. A child's giggle echoing through smoke. For a second I thought it was real. Maybe one kid had made it. Maybe someone survived. Then it came again. Same pitch, same timing. A loop. I turned the corner and saw a row of children, maybe a dozen of them, standing perfectly still in the middle of the street. Costumes torn, faces blank, their shadows stretched the wrong way. The air around them rippled like heat. One of them tilted its head too far. Bones don't bend like that. I raised my weapon, but the moment I blinked, they were gone. All that was left were the masks, dozens of them, lying in the street, still wet on the inside. I don't know how long I stood there, long enough for the sun to burn through the smoke, long enough to realize the light didn't feel warm. The city looked almost peaceful in daylight, like nothing had happened. If someone drove through now, they'd think it was just another disaster site. They wouldn't see the things watching from the alleys or the blood drying between the cracks. They wouldn't feel the wrongness in the air, the static hum that means the veil's still thin. Every year, the breach closes slower. Every year, they get bolder. I don't sleep on Halloween anymore. It's not the monsters that scare me. It's the people. The way they dress up like demons and dance under dying lights, daring something to notice them. And something always does. So, if you see me in your city next October, do yourself a favor. Be out of the town before 11:11. Because if I'm there, it's already too late.